Tanashi. Can you feel that? Do you know that? I can be that.
What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi, back with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile video. This time I'll be showing you the changes and updates to my Penguin deck. Now, if the name didn't already give it away, I am experimenting with some new engines in this deck to try and make it a bit more viable by giving me some offerable bodies and offering some alternate means of interference through combinations of cards, while making it easier for Penguins to play as a whole. And you'll see what I mean when we take a closer look. Starting off with the monster lineup, we have a play set of Penguin Soldier. When flipped, it can target any two monsters on the field and return them back to the owner's hand. A pair of No Penguin. During either player's turn, if a Penguin monster's effect is activated, it special summons itself from the graveyard, hard once per turn, and while it's face up on the field, if a card is returned to the hand by the effect of a Penguin monster, it's banished instead. A pair of Aqua Spirit. You can only special summon it from your hand, and even then you have to banish a water monster out of your graveyard to do it. And while it's face up on the field, during each of the opponent's standby phases, you can target one monster they control, change its battle position, and it has to remain in that battle position for the rest of the turn. A playset of Flying Penguin. It's just a normal monster, and to be perfectly honest, I use it for the same reason as Aqua Spirit, because it's a body that I can use for certain other card effects and summoning mechanics. A pair of Shaddoll Aerial. Or at least I would have my pair if they showed up in the mail. If she's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target any 3 cards in either player's graveyard and banish them. Also, if she happens to be flipped, you can special summon any banished Shaddoll monster in either face-up or face-down defense position. To be honest, I wanted to put the Shaddoll stuff in here sooner when I found out they had a main deck target that was a water level 4. But when I found out she was a psychic instead of an aqua, I was really depressed. But after playtesting her, it turns out she still works in the deck, just not as well as what I had hoped. A pair of Nightmare Penguin, which feels really awkward to say if I'm going to be honest, but it was starting to show signs that it was just bricking. I can special summon Flying Penguin more often than I can summon Nightmare Penguin, but when it's flipped, it can target any card on the field and return it to the owner's hand, and while he's face up, he gives all water monsters I control 200 extra attack points. A pair of Warrior of Atlantis. Now, being a level 4 water aqua means he serves the same purpose as pretty much every 4-star monster in this deck, barring Niel, but if I happen to have him in my hand, I can discard him to the graveyard to add a copy of Legendary Ocean from deck to hand. And a playset of the Great Emperor Penguin. I contribute him to special summon any 2 Penguin monsters from my deck except another copy of Great Emperor Penguin. And bear in mind, that effect is not once per turn. Moving into the spell cards, I have 1 copy of a Legendary Ocean. Its name is treated as Umi, all water monsters gain 200 attack and defense, and I can downgrade the levels of all water monsters in my hand and on my field by 1 level, which makes Great Emperor Penguin into a 4-star monster. But it also downgrades the monsters you pull from the deck eventually, so if you're planning on summoning a rank 4 after you normal summon Great Emperor Penguin, you're pretty much out of luck. 1 instant fusion, unfortunately because of the ban list hit. 1 Monster Reborn. A playset of Moray of Greed. By returning any 2 water monsters in your hand to the deck, you get to draw 3 cards. And bear in mind, this spell is not once per turn. 1 Raigeki. A playset of Shaddoll Fusion. This card allows me to fusion summon a Shaddoll monster, but if my opponent controls a monster summoned from the extra deck, I can send materials from the deck to the graveyard instead. A playset of Super Poly, or at least it would be a playset if my copies ever showed up in the mail. It's a quick play spell that, at the cost of discarding 1 card from my hand, allows me to fusion summon using monsters on either side of the field as materials. A playset of Transmodify. By trading in a monster you control with a level, you can special summon a new monster from your deck with the same type and attribute, but 1 level higher. A pair of Twin Twisters. And a playset of Unexpected Die, which is exclusively to get the Flying Penguin out as fast as possible. Now, since we don't run any trap cards, let's just slide right into the side deck. I have a playset each of Dark Ruler No More, Herald of the Abyss, Solemn Johnson, Solemn Strike, and Solemn Warning. And finally, we finish up with the extra deck. I have a pair of Mud Dragon of the Swamp. He serves as both my instant fusion target as well as my super poly target since he requires 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types. While he's on the field, monsters who have the same attribute as him, including himself, cannot be targeted by any card effects. And as a quick effect once per turn, you can also change his attribute to any other attribute until the end phase of the turn. A pair of El Shaddoll Annoyatilis, or at least I would have my pair if they showed up in the mail. It's a Water Fiend fusion that requires a Shaddoll monster and a Water monster. While it's face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the hand or the graveyard with spell trap effects. And if it happens to go to the graveyard, I can add any Shaddoll spell trap in graveyard to hand, which of course would just be Shaddoll fusion. One totally awesome. During either player's turn, if a spell trap card or monster effect is activated, I contribute an Aqua monster I controller in my hand to negate it, destroy it, and then set that card to my field if the card was activated in hand or on the field. Also, if he's sent to the graveyard, I can retrieve any water monster in my graveyard and put it back in my hand. One Super Quantal Mech Beast Grand Pulse. He requires 2 level 3 monsters, and once per turn, I can detach a material to target and destroy any spell trap on the field. But if he has no materials, he cannot attack at all. One Bahamut Shark. By detaching a material, I can special summon any rank 3 or lower Water Exceeds monster from my extra deck in exchange for him not being able to attack for the rest of the turn. One Full Armored Black Ray Lancer. He requires 3 level 4 monsters, or you can just stack him on top of a rank 3 Water Exceeds without materials. He gains 200 attack for each material underneath him. If he destroys a monster in battle, he can also pop a spell trap the opponent controls, and if he would be destroyed, I can just detach all the materials underneath him instead. One number 37 Hope Woven Dragon Spider Shark. During either player's turn, when any monster declares an attack, I can detach a material from him to reduce all monsters the opponent controls by 1,000 attack points until the end phase of the turn. Also, if he would happen to be destroyed, I can special summon any other monster from my graveyard. One number 101 Silent Honor Arc. By double detaching, I can target an opponent's attack position monster and attach it to him as Exceeds material, and if he would be destroyed by battle or card effect, I can detach a material from him instead. One Link Spider requires a normal monster to be summoned, and once per turn you can special summon a normal monster from your hand to the zone that it points to. One Cross Sheep. It requires 2 monsters with different names to be summoned, and if a monster is special summoned to a zone that it points to, then hard once per turn, I can activate any of the following effects depending on what it points to. If it points to a fusion, I can resummon any level 4 or lower monster from my graveyard. And if it points to an Exceeds monster, I can reduce the attack of all monsters my opponent currently controls by 700 points. Since I don't run any rituals or synchro monsters in this, it's not really worth mentioning the other effects. One Marincess Coral Anemone. Once per turn, I can resummon any water monster from my graveyard with 1500 less attack to the zone that it points to. One Mermail Abyss Alacia. It requires 2 fish, sea serpent, and or aqua monsters. Monsters that it points to gain 500 attack and defense, and if it will be destroyed and sent to the graveyard, I can send any water monster from my deck to the graveyard as cost to target any water monster in my graveyard and special summon it in defense mode. And finally, one Mistar Boy. Water monsters gain 500 attack and defense, fire monsters lose 500 attack and defense, and if he's destroyed, I can retrieve any water monster out of my graveyard and put it back in my hand. And that is the deck. The engines don't mix 100% perfectly well, but for the sake of making this deck faster, able to access the extra deck a bit more efficiently, and actually be able to make good moves, I did have to sacrifice a little bit of the archetype for the sake of making the deck play better. But I have to say, without new support coming out for Penguins or Aqua types as a whole, there's really not much that I can do to further this deck any farther than it already is, so I'm kind of at a standstill. That was actually what I recorded right before I found out about the new Glacial Beast archetype and how it gave us a brand new Penguin monster. This deck just got a major boost in the foreseeable future, and I'm already playtesting and looking forward to seeing what it's going to do. But in the meantime, this mix definitely works and it's definitely fun to play, and now I can say for certain that it has nowhere to go but up. I thank you guys for watching the deck profile video. If you can think of any ways that I can improve this Penguin-like deck, feel free to let me know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.